The medical station floated in deep space far from any sun or planet. Inside its white corridors, doctors and nurses from dozens of alien species worked without rest. They moved quickly between beds filled with dying patients. The air smelled of chemicals and fear. Dr. Velrin was a Karathi, which meant he had blue skin and 3 hearts. His people were known across the galaxy as the best healers. They could survive almost any disease, but not this one. He watched another patient die and felt his hope dying with them. The plague had appeared 3 months ago in a distant star system. At first only a few people got sick, then hundreds, then thousands. The disease spread from planet to planet faster than anyone could track. It killed every species it touched. The symptoms were always the same. Dark veins appeared under the skin. Fever rose to impossible levels. Then death came, usually within 4 days. The Karathi lasted 4 days. The Zelti, who were made of living crystal, lasted 6. Even the precursors, ancient beings who lived as pure energy inside machines, found their systems destroyed by the plague. Nothing worked against it. Medicine failed. Quarantines failed. Prayer failed. Helen Price stood in the observation room above the medical bay. She was human, which made her unusual on this station. Her species had only discovered faster-than-light travel 6 months ago. Before that, humans thought they were alone in the universe. They were wrong. The galaxy was full of life. Hundreds of species, thousands of worlds, all connected by the Galactic Council. Helen had been so excited when she arrived here as Earth's first ambassador. She imagined making friends with aliens, learning about their cultures, seeing wonders beyond imagination. Instead, she watched them die. A voice came through the speaker on the wall. It was Dr. Velrin. He sounded tired. More tired than anyone should sound. Ambassador Price, you need to leave. The plague just reached this section. Your shuttle can still get away safely. Helen pressed her hand against the glass. Below, she saw a nurse collapse. Purple blood pooled around the body. More medical staff rushed over to help, but Helen knew it was useless. She had seen this happen dozens of times already. Doctor, how long does someone have after infection? Hours. Maybe a full day for the strongest species. There was a pause. We have tried everything, Ambassador. Every treatment we know. Every drug in our databases. The plague adapts faster than we can study it. It is almost like the disease can think. Helen felt a chill run down her spine. Maybe it can think. Maybe someone made it to think. Velrin did not respond right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. We have considered that possibility. But who would create such a weapon? And why? I don't know. But doctor, I have a question that might sound crazy. At this point, crazy ideas are all we have left. Helen took a deep breath. She had been thinking about this for days, but saying it out loud felt different. Dangerous. Has anyone tried using human medicine? The silence lasted longer this time. Finally, Velrin spoke. Your species only just joined the galactic community. Your medical technology is hundreds of years behind ours. No offense intended, none taken. But that is not what I asked. No, we have not tried human medicine. There seemed no point. Helen nodded even though Velrin could not see her. Then I want to volunteer. Volunteer for what? Expose me to the plague. Let me get infected. See what happens. The speaker made a crackling sound. It took Helen a moment to realize that Velrin was laughing. Not a happy laugh. A laugh that came from exhaustion and despair. Ambassador, that would be suicide. It might be, or it might not. Doctor, did you ever think it was strange that this plague kills every species exactly the same way? No matter how different their biology, everyone dies with the same symptoms in roughly the same time frame. Velrin considered this. The plague is remarkably efficient. We noticed that, yes, too efficient. Evolution is messy. Biology is complicated. Diseases usually affect different species in different ways. But this plague is perfect. It kills everyone equally. That is not natural. You think it was designed? I think someone made it to kill every species in the galaxy, every species they knew about. Helen stared at her reflection in the glass. But humans are new here. We were not in anyone's calculations. Maybe, just maybe, we are different enough that the plague will not work on us. That is a very large maybe to bet your life on. What other choice do we have? This disease has killed billions already. If we do nothing, it will kill billions more, everyone, the entire galaxy. Helen turned away from the window. I am coming down to the medical bay. Please prepare whatever you need to infect me properly. Ambassador, I must protest. Protest noted. I will be there in 5 minutes. Helen walked through the station's corridors. They were emptier than they should be. So many people had already evacuated. The smart ones maybe, or maybe just the lucky ones. She was not sure which category she fell into. When she reached the medical bay, Dr. Velrin was waiting. He looked terrible. His blue skin had turned pale, almost gray. His hands shook as he held a medical scanner. You are really going to do this? He asked. I am. This goes against all medical ethics. Ethics matter less when everyone is dead. Helen rolled up her sleeve. How do we do this? Velrin prepared a syringe. His hands were steady now, falling back on years of training. This contains blood from an infected patient. The plague is highly concentrated. You will be fully infected within minutes. And then we wait. And we watch. And we hope that your crazy human idea is right. He held the syringe up to the light, checking it carefully. Last chance to change your mind, Ambassador. Helen held out her arm. Do it. The needle went in smoothly. Helen barely felt it. Velrin pressed the plunger, and she watched the dark liquid disappear into her vein. There was no going back now. How long before symptoms start? She asked. For most species, within an hour. You should sit down. There are beds prepared. Helen sat on the nearest medical bed. It was too long for her, designed for the taller Karathi. Her feet dangled off the ground. She suddenly felt very young and very stupid. Velrin attached monitoring devices to her arm, chest, and head. Numbers appeared on screens around them. Heart rate, blood pressure, temperature, brain activity, all normal for now. What do you think will happen? Helen asked. The doctor pulled up a chair and sat down heavily. Honestly, I think you will die. The plague has killed every single person it has infected. Billions of individuals across hundreds of species. Why would humans be different? Because we come from a terrible planet. Velrin looked confused. I have read the reports on Earth. It is quite beautiful. It is. And it is also constantly trying to kill us. Helen felt the fever start exactly 43 minutes after the injection. It began as a warmth in her chest, then spread outward like fire through her veins. The monitoring equipment started beeping faster. Dr. Velrin watched the screens with growing concern. Your temperature is rising rapidly. This matches what we see in other species. Helen nodded but did not speak. Talking took too much energy. The fever climbed higher. Her head pounded. Every joint in her body ached. The dark veins appeared on her arms, just like they did in every other infected person. She was dying. The experiment had failed, except something felt wrong. Or rather, something felt different. Helen had been sick before. Every human had. Earth was full of diseases, colds and flu and infections of every kind. She knew what being sick felt like. This was similar but not the same. The fever was higher than anything she had experienced, but her body seemed to be fighting it in a strange way. Your white blood cell count is increasing dramatically, Velrin said, studying the data. Your immune system is activating every defense it has. This is remarkable. A young Vesh assistant named Kirith entered the room carrying more medical supplies. The Vesh were elegant beings who looked almost human except for their silver skin and large black eyes. Kirith set down the supplies and then stopped. He stared at the monitors. Doctor, look at her temperature curve. Velrin looked. Helen's fever had spiked to dangerous levels, then suddenly dropped. Now it was rising again. Up and down, like a wave. I have never seen anything like this, Velrin whispered. The plague should be overwhelming her system by now. Instead, her body keeps adapting. Helen managed to speak through gritted teeth. That is what human bodies do. We adapt. The next 6 hours were agony. The fever came in waves, each one feeling like it would kill her. But each time, her body found a way to fight back. Helen drifted in and out of consciousness. In her fever dreams, she remembered lessons from school about human history. Humans had almost gone extinct many times. Ice ages, droughts, volcanoes, and diseases. Always diseases. The Black Death, smallpox, influenza, malaria, cholera, tuberculosis. The list went on forever. For thousands of years, disease had killed more humans than anything else. Yet humanity survived. Not because they were strong, because they were stubborn. When Helen woke up, the fever was gone. She felt weak and exhausted like she had run a marathon. But she was alive. The monitors showed her vital signs returning to normal. The dark veins on her arms were fading. Dr. Velrin was asleep in his chair, his head resting on the desk. Kirith sat nearby, watching the screens with wide eyes. When he noticed Helen was awake, he jumped up. "Dr. Velrin! She is awake!" The Karathi doctor jerked awake and immediately checked the monitors. His expression changed from sleepy to shocked, to something Helen could not quite identify. Hope, maybe, or disbelief. "This is impossible," Velrin said. "You should be dead. Sorry to disappoint you." Helen's voice was rough, her throat dry. "Water?" Kirith brought her a cup. The water tasted better than anything Helen had ever drunk in her life. She finished the entire cup and asked for more. "How long was I out?" Helen asked. 10 hours since you first fell unconscious. 14 hours since infection." Velrin ran another scan. "The plague is still in your system, but it is no longer active. Your antibodies have neutralized it. So I am cured? Not cured. Your body did not eliminate the plague. It learned to live with it. The virus is dormant now, kept in check by your immune system. If we remove your blood and expose it to fresh plague samples, your antibodies attack and destroy the virus immediately." Helen sat up slowly. Everything hurt, but it was a normal kind of hurt. Muscle pain, fatigue, nothing like the fever. "Can you use my blood to make a cure?" Velrin and Kirith exchanged glances. The young Vesh spoke first. "Dr. Velrin is already infected. He has perhaps 6 hours left. I have maybe 10. Helen looked at them both. Velrin's gray skin and shaking hands. Kirith's dimming eyes. They were dying. While she slept, they had stayed to monitor her, knowing they were doomed. "Then we need to work fast." Helen stood up, holding onto the bed for support. "Take my blood. As much as you need. Make the cure." "It is not that simple," Velrin protested. "We need to isolate the antibodies, synthesize them in large quantities, test them for safety. You just said you have 6 hours. There is no time for tests. Take my blood, put it in yourself, and see what happens. That could kill me. You are already dying. What do you have to lose?" Velrin stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Very well. But I must warn you, Ambassador, human and Karathi biology are different. Even if your antibodies work, the side effects could be severe. Better than death, they worked quickly." Velrin drew several vials of blood from Helen. He used the medical station's equipment to isolate the antibodies and create a concentrated serum. Helen watched, still weak but fascinated by the process. The Karathi worked with incredible speed and precision even while dying. "It is ready," Velrin finally said. He held up a syringe filled with clear liquid. "This contains your antibodies adapted for Karathi biology. In theory, it should work. In practice, I have no idea what will happen. Only one way to find out." Velrin injected himself. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he gasped and doubled over. His whole body convulsed. The monitors attached to him went crazy, alarms blaring. "Doctor!" Kirith rushed to help, but Velrin held up a hand. "I am fine. This is just the antibodies attacking the plague. It feels like my insides are at war." He groaned and sat down hard. "Make the serum for yourself, Kirith. You will need it soon." The young Vesh did as instructed. His hands shook as he prepared his own dose. Helen helped him attach the monitoring equipment. When Kirith injected the serum, he had the same violent reaction as Velrin. Both aliens spent the next hours in obvious pain. Helen stayed with them, monitoring their vital signs and doing what little she could to help. She gave them water and medicine for the pain. She talked to them, keeping them awake and focused. It reminded her of being a child and having her mother care for her when she was sick. As the hours passed, both patients began to improve. The dark veins faded. The fever broke. The plague retreated before the aggressive human antibodies. By the time morning came, or what passed for morning on a space station, both Velrin and Kirith were sitting up. "I feel terrible," Kirith said. "But I am alive. My body feels like it has been through a battle," Velrin added. "But yes, I am alive too," Helen smiled. It was the first real smile she had felt in weeks. "Then it works. We have a cure." "We have the beginning of a cure," Velrin corrected. "The treatment is brutal. Many patients will not survive it. The human antibodies are very aggressive. They attack everything, not just the plague. But some will survive. That is better than none." Velrin nodded slowly. "Yes, it is better than none." He stood up carefully, still weak but recovering. "We need to inform the council immediately. And we need to start mass production of the serum. Billions of people are infected across the galaxy. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months to reach everyone. Many will die before we can treat them. Then we better get started. Over the next day, word spread through the station. The human ambassador had survived the plague. A cure existed. People who had given up hope suddenly had a reason to keep fighting. The medical bay filled with infected staff, all desperate for treatment. Helen donated blood until she felt faint. Velryn had to force her to rest. Meanwhile, Kirith coordinated with other medical facilities across the galaxy. The cure was transmitted as data, allowing local doctors to create their own versions of the serum. But the celebration was short-lived. Reports started coming in from the first mass treatments. The cure worked, but the price was high. 30% of patients died from the treatment itself. Their bodies could not handle the aggressive human antibodies. They died in pain, their immune systems destroying them from the inside. Helen sat in the observation room again, watching the medical bay below. It was full now. Every bed occupied. Half the patients were recovering from the plague. The other half were recovering from the cure, and some were not recovering at all. "Is this what saving people looks like?" she asked quietly. Velryn stood beside her. He looked healthier now, though still weak. "This is what survival looks like, Ambassador. It is messy. It is painful, many die. But some live. In the end, that is all we can hope for." 3 weeks after the cure was discovered, Earth sent help. Ships arrived carrying doctors, nurses, and medical supplies. They came from every continent on Earth. People who had volunteered to travel across the galaxy to help aliens they had never met. Helen stood in the docking bay and watched them arrive. It made her proud to be human. Lieutenant Jake Morrison was among the first off the transport ship. He was young, maybe 25, with red hair and an easy smile. He saluted Helen crisply. "Lieutenant Morrison reporting for duty, Ambassador. We brought everything Earth could spare. Antibiotics, pain medication, IV supplies, and about 200 medical personnel ready to help. Welcome to the war, Lieutenant. I hope you brought a strong stomach." Jake's smile faded when he saw the medical bay. Hundreds of patients filled every available space. Some were recovering from the plague. Others were fighting the cure. The sounds of pain and fear echoed off the walls. Medical staff from a dozen species moved between beds, exhausted but determined. A Karathi patient nearby started convulsing. Alarms screamed. Nurses rushed over, but Helen could see they were losing him. The human antibodies had triggered a massive immune response. The patient's own body was killing him. Jake turned away, his face pale. "How many die like that?" "Too many." Helen watched the medical team pull a sheet over the body. "The cure saves about 70% of patients, but that means 3 out of every 10 people we treat will die, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. That is horrible. It is better than 100% dead from the plague. This is what winning looks like, Lieutenant. Get used to it." Over the following days, the human medical team spread throughout the station. They brought new techniques and ideas. Katie Williams, a trauma nurse from Denver, noticed that many patients died from something called a cytokine storm. This happened when the immune system went into overdrive and attacked healthy tissue. Katie gathered a group of alien doctors to explain. "Think of it like a fire. The human antibodies are very good at burning the plague out of a system. But sometimes the fire gets too big and burns everything. We need to control the fire." "How do you control an immune response?" asked a Vesh doctor. "On Earth, we use anti-inflammatory drugs, steroids, things to calm down the immune system while it fights. I know your species have similar medicines. We should try combining them with the cure." The alien doctors were skeptical. Their medical traditions were ancient, refined over thousands of years. Human medicine was primitive by comparison, but they were also desperate. They agreed to try Katie's approach. The results were dramatic. With proper support, the survival rate jumped to 85%. Then 90%. The key was balance. Use enough human antibodies to kill the plague, but not so much that they killed the patient. Add drugs to control inflammation. Monitor everything closely and adjust treatment for each individual. Helen watched the human teams work with growing respect. They adapted quickly to alien biology. They learned which species needed more support and which could tolerate aggressive treatment. They saved lives that would have been lost, but the cost went beyond just the deaths. Patients who survived the treatment were changed. Their immune systems no longer worked the same way. The elegant biological processes that had evolved over millions of years were replaced with something cruder, something more human. Dr. Velron explained it to Helen one evening. They sat in the station's observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Karathi was recovering but would never be the same as before. My people heal quickly. We always have. A broken bone would mend in hours. Infections cleared themselves in days. Now, he held up his hand. A small cut on his finger had been there for 3 days. I heal like a human, slowly, painfully. I am sorry, do not be. I am alive. My wife is alive. My children are alive. Many of my people are alive because of your cure. Velron touched the cut gently, but we are different now. Our biology has been made more human, more aggressive, less efficient. We have traded elegance for survival. Helen did not know what to say. She had not considered the long-term effects. The cure saved lives, but at what cost? People were losing part of what made them themselves. More reports came in from across the galaxy. Every species that took the cure experienced similar changes. The Urathi, who had never known chronic illness, now suffered from inflammation and allergies. The Zelti found their crystal bodies grew opaque and clouded. The Vesh lost some of their bioluminescence. Some people refused treatment because of this. They chose death over change. Helen tried not to judge them. Everyone had the right to make their own choices, but it hurt to watch people die when a cure existed. Jake found her one night in the medical bay. She was sitting beside a young Vesh girl who was going through treatment. The child was maybe 8 years old. She cried softly as fever racked her small body. The parents almost refused treatment, Jake said quietly. They did not want their daughter changed. But the girl begged them. She said she would rather live different than die the same. Helen held the girl's hand. The child's skin was silver like all Vesh, but the dark veins of the plague were visible beneath. She is brave. She is terrified. But she is fighting anyway. That is what bravery looks like, I guess. Over the next hours, Helen stayed with the girl. She talked to her, told her stories about Earth, anything to distract from the pain. The girl's name was Shira. She wanted to be a pilot someday. She had never been off her home planet before the plague. Will I really be different after? Shira asked in the common tongue. Her voice was weak. Yes. Your immune system will work more like a human's. You will get sick more easily. You will heal more slowly. You might develop allergies or inflammation problems. But I will live. You will live. Shira closed her eyes. Then I will be different. It is okay. The girl survived the treatment. 3 days later, she was sitting up in bed and eating solid food. Her parents cried with relief. Helen cried too, though she tried to hide it. The girl was changed, yes, but she was alive. That had to be enough. More ships arrived from Earth. Not just medical ships, but supply vessels and transport craft. Earth's governments had mobilized their entire space fleet to help. It was remarkable, Helen thought. Humans had only known about aliens for 6 months. They could have ignored the crisis. They could have closed Earth's borders and protected themselves. Instead, they helped. Dr. Marcus Hayes arrived with the third wave. He was Earth's top disease expert, a gray-haired man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a sharper mind. Marcus immediately began studying the plague itself. This is not natural, he announced after a week of research. Someone made this. Helen had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed was different. Who and why? I do not know who yet, but I can tell you how they did it. Marcus showed her his findings. The plague is designed to attack specific biological weaknesses. Every species in the Galactic Council has their medical information in a shared database. Someone used that database to create a disease that would kill everyone. That is horrifying. It gets worse. The plague is smart. It adapts to defenses. It targets specific genetic markers. This level of biotechnology is far beyond anything Earth has. We only figured it out by studying what it does, not how it does it. But it did not kill humans. Because humans are not in the database. We only joined the galactic community after the plague started spreading. Whoever made this weapon did not know we existed. They could not plan for us. Helen felt a chill. So we survived by accident. We survived because we were unknown. And because our immune systems are paranoid and excessive. We evolved on a planet full of diseases. Our bodies learned to fight everything, even things we have never encountered before. That paranoia saved us, and now it is saving everyone else. The implications were staggering. The plague was not a natural disaster. It was a weapon. Someone had deliberately tried to kill every species in the galaxy. They had almost succeeded. Only the random chance of humans appearing at the right moment had stopped them. "We need to find who did this," Helen said. "We will. But first we need to save as many people as we can. The investigation can wait." Marcus was right. The plague was still spreading. New outbreaks appeared on worlds that thought they were safe. The cure was distributed as quickly as possible, but production took time. Transport took time. Treatment took time. People died while they waited. Helen threw herself into the work. She coordinated with alien governments. She managed supply lines. She gave speeches encouraging people to accept treatment despite the changes it would cause. She barely slept. 1 month after the cure was discovered, Helen stood before the Galactic Council. The meeting was held remotely as travel was still dangerous. Representatives from 300 species appeared as holograms. Many chairs were empty. Those species had no representatives left. Chancellor Voron of the Karathi presided. The old diplomat had survived the plague and the cure, but barely. He moved slowly now with a cane. His voice was still strong, though. "Ambassador Price, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you and your species. Humanity has saved us. Billions of individuals are alive because of your cure. And millions are dead because of it," Helen replied. "The cure is not perfect, Chancellor. It changes people. It kills some. It saves others. I am not sure that deserves thanks." Chancellor Voron looked at Helen through the hologram. His blue skin was paler than it should be. The cure had saved his life but changed him forever. He spoke with quiet dignity. "Ambassador Price, you are correct. The cure is not perfect. Many have died from treatment. Many more have been changed in ways they did not choose. But consider the alternative. Without your intervention, everyone would be dead. Every species. Every world. Complete extinction. That is what the plague promised. You gave us a choice between death and change. We chose change." Other representatives spoke up, agreeing. A Vesh diplomat whose silver skin had lost its shine. A Urathi whose voice was hoarse from inflammation. A Zelti whose crystal body was clouded and dim. All of them changed. All of them grateful. But not everyone felt that way. A representative from the Urathi stood to speak. His name was Corveth, and he was angry. "My people have suffered greatly from this cure. We had never known chronic illness before. Our bodies were perfect, optimized over millions of years of evolution. Now we experience pain daily, inflammation, allergies, weakness. The human cure did not just save us. It crippled us." Helen had been expecting this. She had heard similar complaints from other species. "I understand your frustration. The cure has side effects, serious ones, but the plague would have killed you all." "Would it? How do we know that?" "Perhaps my people would have survived. Perhaps we would have developed our own immunity. We will never know because humans rushed in with their aggressive primitive medicine and changed us without our consent." "The plague killed every species it touched," Helen said firmly. 100% mortality. Your people were dying by the millions. There was no time to wait and see if natural immunity would develop. So you claim. But how convenient that humans who only just discovered space travel happen to have the perfect defense against a plague that kills everyone else. How convenient that you then force your biology onto the rest of us." The implication hung in the air. Helen felt her anger rising but kept her voice calm. "Are you suggesting that humans created the plague?" "I am suggesting the timing is suspicious. I am suggesting that we only have your word about how your immunity works. I am suggesting that you have gained tremendous political influence by being our saviors." Corveth leaned forward. "Tell me, Ambassador Price, did humans create this weapon?" The room fell silent. Every representative was watching Helen. She could see doubt on some faces, fear on others. This was the moment that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy. "No," Helen said clearly. "Humans did not create the plague. We could not have. Our biotechnology was not advanced enough until we studied the plague itself. Dr. Marcus Hayes, Earth's leading disease expert, has completed his analysis. The plague was created using the Galactic Medical Database. Information about every species' vulnerabilities was compiled into one weapon. But humans are not in that database. We only joined the council after the plague began spreading. Whoever created this did not know we existed." "How convenient," Corveth repeated. "No evidence, no proof, just the word of the species that benefits most from this disaster." Marcus Hayes, who had been listening in, stepped forward in his hologram. "Actually, we have considerable evidence. I will share our complete findings with the Council. The plague's design, its origin point, everything. You are welcome to verify our conclusions. And you expect us to trust your data? No, Marcus said. I expect you to check it yourself. Use your own scientists, your own equipment. If you find any errors or lies, I will resign immediately and recommend that humanity be expelled from the Council. Corveth seemed taken aback by this. Very well. We will examine your findings. The meeting continued for another hour. More questions, more accusations, more fear disguised as anger. Helen answered every question honestly. She provided all the data Earth had collected. She held nothing back. When the meeting finally ended, Helen felt exhausted. She sat alone in the conference room, staring at the blank screens where the holograms had been. The door opened and Dr. Velrin entered. The Karathi limped over and sat beside her. That was difficult, he said. They think we did this. They think humans created the plague to gain power. Some think that, not all. Fear makes people look for villains. You are convenient, Helen laughed bitterly. We save them and they hate us for it. They do not hate you. They fear what they have become. When you look in a mirror now, you see a human. When I look in a mirror, I see something that is no longer fully Karathi. That is frightening. It is easier to blame you than to accept what was necessary. But it was necessary. The plague would have killed everyone. Yes, and that makes it worse in a way. If there had been a choice, if there had been another option, then the changes would be bearable. But there was no choice. Accept the human cure or die. That is not really a choice at all. It is survival at the cost of identity. Helen had not thought about it that way. The cure saved lives, but it also destroyed something precious. The unique biology of hundreds of species developed over millions of years, all replaced with human-style immunity. It was cultural genocide dressed up as medicine. I did not mean to destroy anyone, Helen whispered. Of course not. You meant to save us. And you did. But salvation comes with a price. It always does. Over the next weeks, multiple species analyzed the plague data. They used their own laboratories and scientists. They checked and rechecked every detail. Slowly, reluctantly, they reached the same conclusion as Marcus Hayes. The plague was designed using the Galactic Medical Database. It specifically targeted known species. Humans were not in the database and therefore not targeted, but the investigation revealed something else. Something worse. The plague had an origin point, a specific location where it first appeared, the Kale system, a remote cluster of planets at the edge of Council space. Marcus led the investigation team. Helen insisted on going with them. They traveled in a heavily shielded medical ship, prepared for anything. When they arrived at the Kale system, they found death. Every planet was silent. Every station was dark. Billions of dead. The Kale had been a reclusive species known for advanced biotechnology. They rarely interacted with other council members, preferring to work on their own projects in isolation. Now they were extinct. The team explored the main research facility on the second planet. They found bodies, equipment, and records. Lots of records. The Kale had kept detailed notes on everything. They made it, Marcus said, reading through the files. The plague was a Kale project, a doomsday weapon designed to prevent galactic war. If anyone attacked the Kale, the plague would be released. Total extinction for all species. The ultimate deterrent. They were insane, Jake said. He had come along as part of the security team. They were scared, Marcus corrected. The Kale were small in number but technologically advanced. They worried that more aggressive species would conquer them. So they built a weapon that would make conquest pointless. If we die, everyone dies. Helen stared at the records, but they never meant to use it. It was just a threat, exactly, except there was an accident. A containment breach. The plague escaped before they could stop it. The Kale were the first victims of their own weapon. By the time they realized what had happened, it was too late. The plague spread too fast. They died trying to warn everyone else. The investigation team found the warning messages, dozens of them sent to the council in the days before the Kale died. Desperate pleas to quarantine the system, to stay away, to prepare for what was coming. But the messages had been ignored. The Kale were reclusive. Nobody took them seriously. By the time the council realized the danger, the plague had spread to 17 systems. They brought the evidence back to the council. Chancellor Voren called another meeting. This time the mood was different. Not angry or fearful, but sad. The Kale destroyed themselves trying to protect themselves, Voren said. They built a weapon so terrible that using it would mean extinction for everyone. And then the weapon escaped. It is almost poetic in its tragedy. It is horrible, Helen said. They died in terror. Billions of individuals killed by their own creation. And they knew it. The final messages show that they understood what they had done. The council chamber was quiet for a long moment. Then Corveth, the Urathi representative who had accused humans earlier, spoke. I owe Ambassador Price an apology. I accused your species of creating the plague. I was wrong. I allowed my fear and anger to cloud my judgment. Apology accepted, Helen said. I understand why you were suspicious. The situation looked bad for us. Still, I should have trusted the evidence rather than my emotions. Humans did not create this disaster. You saved us from it. My people are changed forever, yes, but we are alive. That is what matters. Other representatives agreed. The mood shifted again, from sadness to something else. Determination, maybe. Or unity. Chancellor Voren stood, leaning heavily on his cane. The Kale are gone. The plague is contained, though not eliminated. We have survived thanks to human intervention. The question now is what we do next. How do we prevent this from happening again? How do we protect ourselves from future threats? Helen had been thinking about this. We need better coordination, better sharing of medical knowledge, and we need to be prepared for biological threats. What do you propose, Ambassador? Chancellor Voren asked. Helen had discussed this with Marcus and the other human medical staff. They had developed a plan. Earth offers to establish a galactic medical corps. It would be headquartered on Earth but operate throughout Council space. The mission would be to prepare for and respond to biological threats. Research, training, emergency response. Think of it as a galactic disease control center. Led by humans, I assume? Corveth asked. His tone was neutral now, curious rather than accusatory. Initially, yes. Humans have the most experience dealing with aggressive diseases. Earth has been fighting plagues for thousands of years. We know how to handle pandemics. But the medical corps would train personnel from all species. The goal is not human dominance. The goal is survival for everyone. The representatives discussed this among themselves. Helen could see some were enthusiastic. Others were hesitant. Change was hard, especially after everything they had been through. Finally, Voren spoke. The council will vote on this proposal. But first I have another matter to address. Ambassador Price, your species has been part of the galactic community for only 6 months. Normally it takes decades for a new species to gain full council membership. But these are not normal times. I propose that Earth be granted immediate full membership, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Helen was shocked. Full membership meant Earth would have voting power. It meant humanity would help make decisions that affected the entire galaxy. It was an incredible honor, and an incredible responsibility. I accept on behalf of Earth, Helen said formally. We will do our best to be worthy of this trust. The vote was unanimous. Earth became the newest full member of the Galactic Council. The Medical Corps proposal also passed, though less unanimously. Some species wanted more oversight. Others wanted guarantees that humans would not abuse their position. Compromises were made. Committees were formed. Bureaucracy happened. But in the end, the Medical Corps was approved. Earth would establish training centers. Human doctors would teach alien physicians about aggressive immunity, pandemic response, and battlefield medicine. In return, alien doctors would teach humans about galactic biology, advanced treatments and technologies Earth had never dreamed of. 6 months after Helen had volunteered to be infected with the plague, she stood on Earth for the first time in a year. The Medical Corps headquarters was being built in Geneva, Switzerland. It would house research laboratories, training facilities, and emergency response teams. Ships would be stationed in orbit, ready to deploy anywhere in the galaxy within hours. Katie Williams was assigned as one of the lead trainers. Jake Morrison joined the Emergency Response Division. Marcus Hayes became the Chief Medical Officer, responsible for all research and development. Dr. Velron accepted a position as the primary liaison between the Medical Corps and the Council. Helen watched the construction from a nearby hillside. It was autumn and the leaves were turning gold and red. Earth looked beautiful after so long in space. She had almost forgotten how much color her home planet had. Impressive, is it not? Velron approached slowly. He still used a cane, though he needed it less each day. His recovery was slow but steady. It is strange, Helen said. 6 months ago, humans did not know aliens existed. Now we are training the galaxy in pandemic response. Your species has an advantage. You evolve surrounded by disease. For you, plagues are normal. For us, the plague was unprecedented. We had no frame of reference for something so deadly. You did, Helen thought about that. Earth history was full of plagues. The Black Death that killed a third of Europe. Smallpox that devastated the Americas. Spanish flu that killed millions worldwide. Humanity had always lived with the threat of disease. It shaped human culture, human medicine, human survival instincts. I read that humans used to believe diseases were punishments from gods, Velrin continued, or that they came from bad air. You had no understanding of microbes or viruses, yet you survived anyway. We are good at surviving. Sometimes I think that is all humans are really good at. We are not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the fastest or most elegant. But we survive, we adapt, we refuse to die. And now you teach us to survive, we try. The galaxy is dangerous. This plague proved that. There might be other threats out there. Other weapons. Other accidents waiting to happen. The medical corps can help prepare for them. They stood in silence for a while, watching the construction crews work. Humans and aliens working side by side, building something new. A future where species cooperated instead of isolating themselves. Where knowledge was shared instead of hoarded. How are your people adapting? Helen asked. The Karathi, I mean. With the changes? Velrin sighed. It is difficult. We are a proud species. We prided ourselves on our perfect biology, our ability to heal rapidly. Now we heal slowly, like humans. Some of my people are angry about this. They feel they have lost something precious. They have lost something precious. All the species that took the cure have. I am sorry for that. Do not be. We are alive because we lost it. That is an acceptable trade. Velrin paused. Though I admit I miss being able to eat anything without worrying about inflammation. Human immune systems are very paranoid. Helen laughed. Yes, they are. We developed allergies because our immune systems attack harmless things like pollen and peanuts. It is excessive and kind of stupid, but effective against actual threats. But effective, Helen agreed. More reports came in from across the galaxy. The plague was finally contained. Outbreaks still occurred occasionally, but the medical corps responded quickly. Treatment protocols had improved. Survival rates were above 95% now. The galaxy was learning to live with the threat, but the changes remained. Every species that had taken the cure was permanently altered. Children born to treated parents inherited the modified immune systems. Within a few generations, the entire galactic population would have human-style immunity. The elegant biological diversity that had evolved over millions of years was being replaced with something cruder but more resilient. Some philosophers called it the humanization of the galaxy. Others called it the Great Compromise. Everyone called it necessary. A year after the plague began, Helen attended a memorial service on the Galactic Council station. They gathered to remember the dead. Billions across hundreds of worlds. The Kale who had died trying to warn everyone. The patients who had not survived treatment. The medical staff who had sacrificed themselves to help others. Chancellor Vorin gave a speech. He was stronger now, walking without a cane. His blue skin had regained some of its color. He would never be the same as before, but he was healing. We gathered to remember those we lost, Vorin said, but also to celebrate those who survived. We are different now, changed. Our biology is no longer purely our own. We carry human immunity in our cells. Some see this as a loss. I see it as a gift. The gift of life. The gift of a future. We live because humanity shared their strength with us. We live because one species refused to let the rest of us die. The crowd was silent, humans and aliens standing together. Helen saw familiar faces. Marcus Hayes looking tired but satisfied. Katie Williams, who had saved thousands with her inflammation protocols. Jake Morrison, who had worked without rest during the crisis. Dr. Velrin, who had been the first to receive the cure, and she saw unfamiliar faces too. Aliens from species she had never met. People whose lives had been saved by human medicine. Children who would grow up in a galaxy that had learned to fight back against extinction. We cannot change what happened, Vorin continued. We cannot bring back the dead. We cannot undo the changes we have undergone. But we can choose how we move forward. We can choose to see this tragedy as the end of the old galaxy, or the beginning of a new one. I choose to see it as a beginning. Applause filled the chamber. It started slowly, then built to a roar. Species that had been suspicious of humans were now cheering for them. The fear had not entirely disappeared, but it was fading. Trust took time to build. Understanding took time to develop. But both were possible now. After the memorial, Helen found a quiet corner of the station. She looked out at the stars and thought about everything that had happened. So much death, so much pain, so much change, but also survival, hope, a future that had almost been lost. Her communicator chimed. It was a message from Earth. The first graduating class of the medical corps was ready. 200 doctors from 20 different species, trained in human medicine and alien biology. They would deploy to stations across the galaxy, ready to respond to the next crisis. Because there would be a next crisis. The plague had proven that. The galaxy was dangerous. Life was fragile. But now, for the first time, the galactic community was prepared. They had learned from humanity that survival was not about being perfect. It was about being stubborn, about refusing to quit, about adapting no matter how much it hurt. Helen smiled and sent a response confirming receipt of the message. Then she headed to the transport bay. There was work to do. Always more work. More species to help. More people to train. More lives to save. She was tired. Everyone was tired. But they would rest later. Right now, the galaxy needed them. And humans had never been good at walking away from people who needed help. It was not in their nature. 2 years had passed since the plague first appeared. Helen stood on the bridge of the medical ship Nightingale, watching the planet Vesh Prime grow larger on the view screen. The planet was beautiful, covered in purple oceans and silver continents. It was also dying. How bad is it? Helen asked Captain Richard Hayes. He was Marcus Hayes' nephew, a career military officer who had volunteered for the medical corps. Bad. 2 million infected. The Vesh government tried to handle it themselves. They refused treatment for months, hoping their own medicine would work. It did not. Now they are desperate. Richard adjusted the ship's approach. We have clearance to land in the capital. They are setting up treatment centers across the planet. The Nightingale was one of 12 medical ships now operating in Council space. Each ship carried 30 medical personnel and enough supplies to treat hundreds of thousands of patients. They were humanity's response to the continuing crisis. The plague was contained but not eliminated. Outbreaks still happened, especially on isolated worlds that had avoided initial contact. Dr. Lisa Chen led the medical team. She was young but experienced. Having worked through the worst of the plague on the Council station, she gathered her staff in the briefing room. Listen up, everyone. Vesh Prime has 40 million inhabitants. 2 million are infected. If we do not act fast, those numbers will flip. The Vesh have good medical infrastructure, but they have no experience with plague protocols. We need to set up triage, establish treatment centers, and train their doctors. We have 72 hours to get ahead of this or we lose the planet. The team deployed as soon as the ship landed. Helen went with them, coordinating with the Vesh government. The local authorities were overwhelmed and grateful for help. They provided buildings for treatment centers, schools, sports stadiums, anywhere with space and power. Dr. Gary Phillips took charge of triage. He was a former military surgeon, blunt but effective. He organized patients by severity. Early-stage infections got immediate treatment. Advanced cases went to intensive care. Those too far gone received comfort care only. It was brutal work. The Vesh were elegant beings with silver skin and large expressive eyes. Watching them suffer was hard. Watching them die was harder. But the medical teams pushed through. They worked 20-hour shifts. They slept in their clothes. They saved lives. Katie Williams ran one of the larger treatment centers. She had perfected her inflammation protocols over the past 2 years. Her methods saved more patients than standard treatment. She taught the Vesh doctors her techniques. The human antibodies go nuclear on the plague, Katie explained to a group of Vesh physicians. That nuclear reaction can kill the patient if we do not manage it. We use anti-inflammatory drugs to control the response, steroids, immune suppressants. We walk a tightrope between killing the plague and killing the patient. A Vesh doctor named Sylvith listened carefully. She was older, with silver hair and kind eyes. Your medicine is very aggressive. We Vesh prefer gentle treatments. Let the body heal itself. Gentle does not work on this plague. Trust me, we tried everything. Aggressive is the only option. Katie showed her the survival statistics. With standard treatment, 70% survive. With my protocols, 95% survive. I know it seems harsh, but it works. Sylveth studied the numbers.
Very well.
Teach me your harsh methods. My people are dying. I will do what is necessary. Over the next days, Katie trained dozens of Vesh doctors. They were quick learners, adapting human techniques to Vesh biology. The survival rate climbed steadily, but the cost was high. Patients who survived were changed. Their elegant Vesh biology was replaced with something more human. Helen visited one of the treatment centers and met a young Vesh girl. The child was maybe 8 years old, lying in a medical bed. Her silver skin was covered in dark veins from the plague. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking her vital signs. "Hello," Helen said gently. "What is your name?" "Shira." The girl's voice was weak. "Are you the human ambassador?" "I am. How did you know?" "Everyone knows. You are the one who saved the galaxy." Shira coughed, a painful sound. "Are you going to save me too?" Helen sat beside the bed. "My friends are going to save you. The doctors. They know what to do. Will it hurt?" Helen considered lying but decided against it. Children deserved honesty. "Yes, it will hurt a lot. The treatment is almost as bad as the disease. But you will survive, and then you will get to grow up and become whatever you want to be. I want to be a pilot. I want to see other worlds. Then you will be a pilot. You will see worlds I have never seen. You will have adventures I can only imagine." Shira smiled weakly. "Promise?" "I promise." The girl closed her eyes. Helen stayed with her through the worst of the treatment. The fever spikes, the convulsions, the pain. It took 3 days. There were moments when Helen thought they would lose her. But Shira was strong. She fought through it. On the 4th day, she opened her eyes and asked for food. Helen cried quietly in the hallway afterward. She had seen thousands of patients, had saved thousands of lives. But it never got easier. Each person was unique. Each survival was a miracle. Each death was a tragedy. Jake Morrison found her there. The young lieutenant had become a skilled emergency responder. He had saved countless lives himself. He sat beside Helen without speaking, just offering silent support. "Does it ever get easier?" Helen asked. "No, but we keep doing it anyway." "Why?" "Because someone has to. Because they need us. Because walking away is not an option." Helen nodded. Jake was right. Humanity had stumbled into the role of galactic healers by accident. They could have walked away, could have protected Earth and let the rest of the galaxy suffer, but they had not. That was not what humans did. When people needed help, humans helped. Even if it hurt, even if it was hard. Especially then. 3 weeks into the operation, the outbreak was under control. 2 million infected had been reduced to 200,000. Of those, 90% would survive. The Vesh government declared the crisis over. There would be celebrations, parades, honors for the medical corps. But Helen did not feel like celebrating. She visited Shira one last time before leaving. The girl was sitting up in bed eating solid food. Her silver skin had lost some of its shine. The plague and the cure had changed her permanently. But she was alive and smiling. "You are leaving?" Shira asked. "Yes, other worlds need help. But you do not need me anymore. You are strong now. Will I really be different forever?" Helen sat on the edge of the bed. "Yes, your immune system works more like a human's now. You will get sick more easily. You will heal more slowly. You might develop allergies to things that never bothered you before." "That sounds bad." "It is not ideal. But you know what else? You will be harder to kill. Diseases that would have killed you will just make you uncomfortable. Your body learned to fight like a human fights. Aggressive, excessive, refusing to quit." Shira thought about this. "So I am part human now." "In a way, yes. All the species that took the cure are part human now. Your children will be too. In a few generations, the whole galaxy will have human-style immunity. Is that good or bad? Both. You lost something precious. Your unique Vesh biology, but you gained something too. Survival. The ability to fight back against things that want to kill you. Whether that is good or bad depends on how you look at it." Shira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I think it is good. I'm alive. I get to become a pilot. I get to see the galaxy. That is worth being different." Helen smiled. Yes. Yes, it is." On the flight back to Earth, Helen thought about the past 2 years. Billions saved, millions lost. The galaxy forever changed. Was it worth it? She still did not know. Ask her on good days and she would say yes, absolutely. Ask her on bad days and she was not sure. But the work continued. The medical corps was expanding. More ships, more personnel, more species joining the training programs. Humans taught aliens about aggressive immunity. Aliens taught humans about advanced biology. Knowledge flowed in both directions. The galaxy was learning to work together. Commander Velrin had become one of the most important figures in the medical corps. The Karathi doctor served as the bridge between humans and the rest of the council. He understood both perspectives. He had been changed by the cure himself. He knew what it felt like to lose part of your identity to survive. Helen met with him at the Medical Corps headquarters in Geneva. They sat in his office overlooking the training facilities. Below, humans and aliens studied together. Learning, adapting, building a better future. How are we doing? Helen asked. Better than expected. The latest graduation class had 50 students from 30 different species. We have treatment centers established in 200 systems. Response time for new outbreaks has dropped to less than 12 hours. Velrin paused. But there is resistance. What kind of resistance? Some species are refusing treatment. They call it the humanization plague. They say we are destroying galactic diversity by forcing everyone to adopt human biology. There are movements on several worlds to ban the cure. Helen had heard whispers of this but hoped it would fade. It had not. What do we do? Nothing. If a species chooses death over change, that is their right. We cannot force them to accept treatment, but we can educate them, show them the statistics, explain the science. We have. Some listen. Some do not. Fear is a powerful force.